Welcome to Dear Sandy. I'm Sandy Galiff, a member of the New York State Legislature, representing Northern Westchester and parts of Putnam County. And it's just a pleasure to be here with my two guests. We're actually calling the program A Tale of Two Supervisors, which is, we have two supervisors here. We have Dana Levenberg, who is Town of Ossining Supervisor, and Maureen Fleming, who is the Town of Kent Supervisor. And I just want to point out to the audience, the 95th Assembly District, the southern end is Ossining and the northern end is Kent. So it really spreads out with having you both here. So I'm really excited. Now, Maureen, you have served for, said, 2.5 years.
Yes, this
as
is my second term.
Supervisor, and Dana's just about a half a year.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
brand new.
All right. So let's talk about some of the things that you've been doing, Maureen. When you had not been in any kind of governmental service before that, I don't think, had you? Or
In the area, I had actually been the Stormwater Management Committee chairperson in my town, but I had not been
Right.
a member of the town board.
but that's government and issues.
That is, and that's a
tough
major
one.
issue
Right.
in this region, certainly, since we're in the New York City watershed. So, that was a little training for at least some of the issues that I have to deal with as being on the board of the East of Hudson Corporation that deals with these issues. So, I didn't go in cold on that, but yeah, no, I had not been on the town board before.
And you've been an attorney.
I am
you
an
are
attorney.
an attorney.
I am still a
Right,
practicing
right.
attorney, although my practice has diminished to almost nothing because, being a supervisor really is a full-time job, and I take it very seriously. I mean, I'm getting emails and, Facebook messages on Saturday night at 11 o'clock, and I'm responding. So
But people don't want to wait. If you live in a community and you have an elected official, I think that people don't want to wait till Monday morning necessarily.
right, and
which becomes
clearly with
an
the
issue.
internet, now people don't have to wait. I mean, I think that you have to be responsive to the public. I mean, I know we had an issue. We had an oil spill in Lake Carmel, and it happened on a Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning. People weren't going to wait until Monday to find out why all the emergency vehicles were at the lake. And you know what, actually a resident had said to me, because I put out an email that evening informing everyone what had happened, what steps were being taken, who the lead agency was, what we were doing. And somebody said to me the next week, he said, we used to wait and not hear anything until like Monday morning, and we'd be at the deli, and you'd hear everything secondhand or third hand. So now at least you can get information quickly to people and keep them apprised of what's going on in the town.
So you're out there when something happens.
I am.
Yeah.
I
If
am
you're
out
in town, I mean, if you happen to be on vacation, it's a little different, but and you can't probably vacation as much as one would like.
And I showed up that day actually in a really raggy T-shirt and shorts because I was cleaning my house. And when I got the call, I said to my husband, should I change? And he just looked at me and he said, really? And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
Right, you're on the job
You're on the
anytime.
job.
So Dana, you've had the experience of being on the Ossining School Board, doing PTA, micro fundraising dollars, and of course being my chief of staff. So when you became a supervisor, and you went right into the supervisor role. So how did all those experiences, did it help you?
It absolutely helped me. I mean, I think, I started learning about advocacy with the PTA and also learning about resources and working together with people and communications and what was important and how to get resources for children and into classrooms and to help in the best way possible to make sure that legislation was, aligned with what parents thought should be happening for their children in the classroom. I met a lot of people, and PTA does a lot of training. And then I ran for school board after I'd been very involved in PTA for a few years. And again, I learned how everything kind of ties together and weaves together, and how it's so important. I mean, everything kind of always gets back to money and how the money flows. So there are a lot of important conversations that we had about making sure that money kind of was flowing to the right channels in the school and managing those resources. And also, again, working together with your local community resources, working together with groups that are trying to improve outcomes for children and the community at large, because that's really, what education's all about, is making for a great community. And then I did work with Ossining Microfund. I've been on the show before talking a little bit about that, and that's, not-for-profit, which again, brings you into this world, this not-for-profit world. We have so many not-for-profits in Ossining that work so hard to make sure that our community is thriving at all levels, whether it's for education or businesses or, to keep people away from drugs and alcohol abuse, all the different things, cancer support. There's so many different organizations that do so much. Of course, the prize was working in your office and seeing how, and helping constituents and seeing how so much of that tied together. And also had a great opportunity to learn a lot about economic development through your office and how, again, we get back to how the money flowed. And I think that a lot of the changes that Governor Cuomo made in terms of money flowing kind of came through these regional councils. So how regional councils kind of parse out money in this somewhat competitive way led me to have an understanding about maybe how, as a town, we need to apply for some of those grants and be competitive and look to put together public-private partnerships to improve our community overall. So I think, there are lots
all
of
those things build.
Absolutely,
They really do.
everything kind of ties together. There's
Right.
lots of different. It's about resources, communication. All of those different things. Problem solving. Those are all the types of things I think that I learned really through your office, but was a culmination from my other experiences as well.
Well, let's talk about those budgets. Was that one of? We have enough of a problem with the New York State budget. Oh my goodness, but we have a lot of people collectively working on that, and you end up with a budget that you have to put together, which is your guidance for how you're going to spend money during the year. And Maureen, I guess you received a budget because it probably had to be done by the end of December with the former supervisor doing it, and then you picked up on it.
We walked into a budget that we the budget had been adopted, but we had to adopt the salaries. And actually one of the first acts that our board did when we came in, we were sworn in January 1st, and at our organizational meeting, our board, 3-2 with our new members, voted down the salary increase for town board members. Because, I had certainly run on a campaign of fiscal austerity, and that we thought was a good first step, that we were serious, that we were certainly not going to take raises. And in my first budget, I actually sat down, we had the pre-meets with all our department heads, and we had asked them to, give us their budgets. And then about a week before our meetings started, I said, okay, you've given me your budget, now cut it by 5%. Because, the people in the town were really feeling the pain.
Well, taxes, property taxes are
property
the
taxes,
issues.
and there had been a lot of dipping into the general fund, which we wanted to run a more austere budget, and we were able to. The first two budgets that we've put together have had no increase in tax for the people in the town of Kent. So I'm very proud of that. We haven't cut services. We haven't cut what we do provide. And as a matter of fact, because there's not much. Most of the town has wells and septic. We don't provide a lot of services for people. So what we've actually tried to do is do more community-oriented events in town to actually try to give back to the public. After we put together our first budget, I said to a member of the public, I was saying this to Dana before, aren't you happy we're not having any tax increases this year? And this woman said to me, well, you could reduce taxes.
Of course.
So well, give us a couple more years, and maybe
Right.
we can do that. But you have a difficulty with a lot of the mandates to, to actually pull a budget together. But we've been, we've worked very hard to not lay more of a burden on the people in the town.
And Dana, you haven't yet produced a budget.
Not yet. We're going to start
So
in August.
you, is that when you do it? You
Start
in the
about
summer.
Right. Start in the summer. And then we'll move to adoption, I guess, by October or so.
Right.
Yeah. That's approximately when.
So do you?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, you know, I've been sort of looking at how the resources are working right now, how all of the staff are working, how they're getting to the different responsibilities that they have, and I'm also looking around and seeing if there's any way that we can have some efficiencies with our neighboring municipalities, if there's more areas that we could be sharing. We've been working together on the possibility of one water district for the town and village of Ossining.
Well, see, that's the difference. Maureen has the town of Kent with no villages in it, but Ossining has, besides the town, the two villages of Briarcliff and Ossining. So it's a little different situation.
Right. So we have an opportunity to kind of look and see, as you know, whether if people shift out of positions, are there opportunities then to look at our departments and how we could be using the resources better, and if there are ways that we could redirect. So that's what I don't want to share too much because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but you know, that's a direction that we've been working on together with the village of Ossining. We reached out to the village of Briarcliff as well to see if there are possibilities for building on some efficiency studies that have been done in the past, and possibly again trying to get some grant money to help us further what had already been done. So, for example, as you know, a couple of supervisors before me, they got rid of the police department, they consolidated the courts. So there are other areas that might be ripe for merging or sharing or something, you know, that might help us all still get the same work done, but in maybe a slightly more fluid way. Lots of people, certainly in Ossining, don't know if they live in the town or the village. So, I mean, many do, but not everybody does. And when they walk into Town Village Hall, they're not exactly sure, you know, what the difference is and why there are two governments and that kind of thing. So.
Maureen, do they have the same problem? I mean, you're in the town of Kent, but there aren't addresses. When somebody gets their mailing address,
it comes
they're
to
Lake Carmel or
actually Carmel is the post office, and that's our zip code. So yeah, we have a lot of issues because some people that live in Kent do think they live in Carmel, and we actually had there was an opening of a business in the town of Kent, and they invited, you know, me and town board members to go to the ribbon cutting. And all of a sudden, the supervisor of the town of Carmel showed up, and I said, "Oh, you're outside your area here." And he said, "Yeah, I don't know why I was invited. They told me this was in the town of Carmel, but I couldn't picture where this address was." So yes, I've had residents approach me that, you know, it's maybe time we get a zip code so that we do have an identity. And I think some people do get confused, even people that live in Carmel, because it's Lake Carmel, but we are proudly the town of Kent.
Right. Well, if you look at school districts, they're all over the place. It's really hard for people to get identification to what's going on. So when you know, with issues that you've had to deal with, Maureen, what are the? Did you have, you know, easy issues, complicated issues? What was over the last 2.5 years? Is there anything major that has happened within the community?
Well, I mean, we've had, you know, there was a lot of issues about a cell tower that was going up in the community, and there was a sewer district that was being put in that, you know, my first term, that was something that we inherited and had to deal with, that we didn't, you know, we had to deal with some of the ramifications and some of the public unhappiness with. But
well, you don't have too many sewer districts.
We have one.
And you're just because most people are on septic, I would assume.
We
very rural.
We have 2 water districts, but we only have 1 sewer district. So, you know, we inherited that problem, and, you know, you can't, I mean, some things you can't go back on, whether you're happy with them or not. you know, you have to play the hand you're dealt, and you can be sympathetic to people, but certainly you can't violate contracts or, you know, reverse things that have already begun. We also had my first year in office was the last year of our 3 union contracts. So, you know,
Well,
we had
that's
to,
always interesting, I'm sure.
Yes,
Settling
and so
those.
I had hoped to get them done before the end of 2014, but at least we got them done before the end of 2015, and everybody, I think, was relatively happy. I have a, you know, so those were some of the things that, you know, that I walked into. But I think that, you know, a lot of the furor has died down about some issues, and some issues, you know, are still existing. But my philosophy is that, you know, you deal openly with people, you give them the honest answer. They're not always going to be happy with the answer in its content, but at least they can understand that, you know, you're doing what you can do, and you're working for people. And I've found that, you know, we had last year, Lake Carmel is a major population center, and we had a blue-green algae issue in the lake that lakes all over the state
Right.
and all over the Northeast really had. And, you know, people were very unhappy because they were losing their swim season. But, you know, if you research the science and you talk to, you know, we talk to the Department of Health and DEC and DEP and our, you know, water consultants, although people may not be happy with the result, at least they understand that, you know, you're really doing your job and that you're trying to get them the answers and you're trying to move something forward. So, you know, you have to be prepared. I mean, you know,
Right,
you have to
right.
be prepared for the
everything.
issues that pop up, and
Right.
whatever they are, you have to be ready to find a solution. You can't have a preconceived notion, I don't think, of what the solution is. You have to really do the work.
Right, right. So Dana, you walked into at least one
Reassessment.
big issue. I don't know
Absolutely.
about others, but
Yes.
The whole issue of reassessment in the town of Ossining,
Yeah.
and hadn't been done for
45
45 years.
approximately.
Long
Yep.
time. I know. See, Putnam County, you've done reassessment
Right.
more
We're 100
periodically. You're at
100%.
100%, but in Westchester, we haven't done much of that.
Absolutely.
A few places,
Right.
but
45
not-
years.
45 years, yeah, and I think that's even less than Greenberg, who's also
Right,
going
he's
through the
also
same
just
thing.
done it.
Town
I
of
think they were
Greenberg,
about
yeah.
60 years.
Yeah,
Yes,
about
so
60 years. So, yeah, so I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who had their assessments go up. There's some people whose assessments went down, and then there's some people whose assessments stayed the same. And, you know, for some people, their assessment went up a great deal, which is great that their house is worth more. But now they've been, you know, according to them and many, you know, we know this to be true. They came in, they thought their taxes were X. Now they've been paying their taxes on time all along, and now, you know, they might double or triple. How's that their problem? Why should it be their fault? So some people would say, well, they have been paying less than what the real value of their home is, paying taxes on less than that, which is true, but you know, that's not like cash dollars, right? That's not real. Like the value of your home, you don't really understand that. So we had an opportunity to work with the State Assembly and the Senate, with you, Sandy. Thankfully, you were willing and able to introduce
it was
legislation.
interesting project. Interesting
Yes.
project. Yes.
With the town of Greenberg, we approached you to see if we could have something that, I don't want to say circuit breaker because I know that means something else for you, but that was a little bit of, to take the pain away from the first couple years, a phase-in approach to getting the taxes up to the full amount for people, especially if we haven't had the opportunity yet, but we'll have an opportunity to vote on if we're going to set a limit, and most likely we would be at about 25% or more for people whose assessments have gone up a lot more. A lot. So if they've jumped a lot and now they have to deal with the burden of that, giving them a little bit of a path to figuring it out, a couple of years to phase in those taxes. So that passed the
Right, we were
Assembly.
very excited. We're waiting to see if the
Senate.
governor's going to sign the bill.
Yeah.
But see, when you do reassessment all the time, you don't have these big jumps.
Right.
And,
yes.
and it just knocks people for a loop when
Yeah.
all of a sudden you might have, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, my assessment went up, but it's not up that much. But others could have a really hefty increase.
Absolutely.
You know, $10,000,
Yeah.
$20,000. I mean, in some places, in Greenberg particularly.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for people. So this cushions it a little bit. But it was interesting project working. I found it very interesting working with assessors. And I know you have an assessor. I've actually, before you were there, I think I worked on an assessment issue that was that it was a piece of, I'm real property tax chair, so we got into this assessment for farmland and whether the person really should have a tax abatement and so on. So there's some fascinating things. And I guess we go back and forth with the state. So you're working on the state level. I don't know whether we've done good things to our supervisors this year or not.
Well, there was a zombie legislation, the zombie property legislation that was passed and signed. We're looking forward to seeing if we can, that will help us with some of our zombie properties in town and village of Ossining as well.
So what is a zombie property for those who might not know our terminology here?
It's when a bank doesn't really take title, right, to a property, and now the property, nobody really is taking responsibility for the upkeep.
Grass is growing.
They can't sell it. You can't do anything. Nothing's happening, and you know it really brings down the value of the entire neighborhood. So
And not only the. It doesn't only bring down the value, but it certainly brings down the morale. You know, people, I mean, people approach my office, and we have in the town of Kent, we have an excellent, actually, we just had a town board meeting last night, and we had an issue come up, and our code enforcer was there. And we have a very good code enforcer, and he really does try to keep on top of these issues because you know, you really don't want to see this neglect. You don't want to see the overgrown bushes and the, you know, the boarded up windows.
Right.
It really, especially if people are trying to sell their homes or even just people that are having company. You know, you don't want to invite someone to your home, and this is what they have to look at. And in the town of Kent, we've really tried to maintain those houses. I mean, you know, our code enforcer writes a lot of violations, and if they're not corrected, we go ahead, we hire a contractor and you know, pass that along. But hopefully this legislation is going to make it even easier.
Right, and there is a reporting number, I don't have it right now, but for people to report, so we get more of a sense of how many we have in this area, and to go after the banks to be sure that they're doing the right thing with their properties. So
you can go online to dfs.ny.gov.
Oh, okay.
I
and
found
it's
that
right
out yesterday.
There. Okay,
and
good.
you can report it online. But I spoke with DFS yesterday, Department of Financial Services, and they said that you should only do one report. Like having lots and lots of reports per property makes it not as good. It's better if you just have either one person from the neighborhood or town could also report if we have any information about any of the banks that are involved. That helps them kind of get a jump on the situation, and then I think that they're going to work to contact
because we may find certain banks are more of a cause of the problem or whatever. So that'll be great. Now, have you had any unusual phone calls from people? Because I have to tell you, my most unusual phone call was somebody who wanted me to come and get the rabid skunk out of the hole that had gone in their backyard. I think that actually tops the most interesting phone call that I've ever received. I mean, there have been others. No, I wasn't equipped. I did call the police, and I don't know what happened after that. But what kind of calls do you get from people? What are their, you know, what kind of concerns that maybe you didn't expect?
Well, I have to say, I have very good neighbors, and I love my neighborhood. But since I have taken this job, I realize what excellent neighbors I have, because I get a lot of calls about neighbor versus neighbor issues. And I think that, you know, for a large part, you know, a lot of Kent is, Western Kent, the lots are larger and the homes are farther apart. But in other parts of Kent, you know, they were summer communities, and so they were bungalow-style houses on smaller lots because it was just a summer home. And now you have, you know, for the most part, Kent is year-round residents. And when you have people close, you have issues. And some of the issues that people want you to resolve, you know, they're not town issues, but I still try to help them. You know, we get also a lot of road calls. I mean, that's
Well, you have a lot of roads.
we have a lot of roads. And so that's, you know,
Is that potholes?
I always
or
hand that
whatever?
over to our highway superintendent.
Yes.
Because, you know, he is an elected official who's very willing to handle it. But yeah, people call you. I got a call on my machine. Luckily, they didn't call me on my cell phone at 2 o'clock in the morning that somebody's dog had gotten out.
Oh. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Right.
Unusual one.
You know, deer in the lake. We had a deer in the lake call. You know,
Right.
it really does run the
It
gamut.
absolutely does.
And I have to say, I mean, there are some issues that were actually county issues.
But that's a problem because people can't separate that
People
out,
do.
right?
People can't.
Right. Federal, state, county, town.
Right, and sometimes you hear a level of frustration in people's voices that they've gotten the runaround from so many people that you have to decide, even if it's not your issue, you're going to be their last stop.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I will contact the county for you, or I'll contact, you know, our assemblywoman, you know, because you can hear they don't want to be given one more phone number. And, you know, you're their elected official. I mean, I feel responsible to them.
Right. So maybe it's not an unusual phone call, Dana, but what do people call you
oh my
about?
goodness, I'm
Now they've
trying
been
to
calling
think.
you about
Well,
their assessment on their property.
That was really rated. A lot of assessment questions at the beginning. A lot of people who were either upset that we were going to adopt homestead or that we weren't going to for the condo owners. Then people who felt that their whole neighborhood was overassessed. And so, you know, we had a whole lot of different issues about that, and I'm sure that there will be more. There's been a lot of development. I think, you know, with the uptick in the economy, people are developers are looking at land, and there's a lot of great things happening in Ossining, certainly. So there's a lot of calls about development and how it relates to the environment. Quite a lot of calls and emails about that. Our parks, we have a lot of parks, and they're beautiful parks, but they've been very hard to maintain. A lot of our infrastructure and parks, and I think that, again, that some of that stuff, even though we have fantastic staff and, you know, crews that go out there between our highway and our parks department, we really are doing some wonderful things in our parks, but there is a lot of infrastructure there that's really hard to keep up with if you don't have you know, kind of a constant cash flow. And, you know, I do think that that's been maybe partially due to the tax cap, where we don't have the ability to pull out capital costs like similar to what schools can do. So I'm hopeful that maybe there'll be and I know that, again, I know the governor has tried to put some money into parks, but a lot of times it's competitive. You have to go after it versus just having it, you know, divided up among everybody, knowing that there's lots of parks out there that need love.
I must say, I think we put much more money into education aid as opposed to municipal aid. So the municipal aid kind of comes through grants, and then that's hard for you all to keep up with grants, you know, grant writers.
You don't have a lot of grant writers.
A lot of grant writers
Yeah.
to try to access the money. Well, I think, you know, over time, the tax cap, I think, I believe it's worked well. It's made us all manage things differently. But I think at some point you get to a point, if you're not resurfacing roads and they're getting down to the bare bones, it's going to cost you more to do it. So I think we really have to analyze all of that, how that's been working, and maybe allow the municipalities to have the infrastructure done a different way. Well, we have so much more to talk about. It's a never-ending issues when you're talking about town government, county government, state government, and federal government. But I just want to thank you, Dana. I want to thank you, Maureen, so much. And continue your good work in your towns. And I want to thank all the people that are watching. If you have any questions, give me a call at 914-941-1111. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.